So, good morning and welcome. I'm here today from the whole group with Adam from ServiceNow, and we're going to talk today about CRM, just have a chat. We've known each other for a long time. Often we have these conversations, and I think a few weeks ago, Adam, we said, why don't we just record it
Yeah.
and just share some of the experiences and learning. So, really happy to have you here with us today.
No, thank you for having us here. I think it's going to be fun.
Absolutely. So, why don't we kick off with some intros? If you want to tell everyone who you are, what you do.
Sure. So I'm Adam Spearing. I'm at ServiceNow. I've been there nearly 2 years, and I head our AI go-to-market, which means I spend time with a lot of our key clients, doing two things really: helping them understand the full power of ServiceNow, first of all, and then also helping them understand how do they actually get going and get moving and drive proper business transformation. So that's what I do in my current role.
Fantastic. And tell us a little bit about how did you get there? How are you
Oh my
here
God.
today? That's probably a long journey, but
Yeah, so I consider myself a veteran of the software industry. So I've been doing this for 33 years. I worked out this morning before I came here. And I worked for big companies and small companies. I did IBM, Hewlett Packard, Sun Microsystems. I did startups. I did Opsware, and then I was privileged enough to spend 10 very great years at Salesforce. Left there and did a few other things, and then joined ServiceNow a couple of years ago. So I've done all kinds of technology for a very long time in my career. How about you?
yeah, no, almost similar. So I think, yeah, I was thinking back too. So I started in '97, graduate IT at 3M on mainframes. So I've sort of lived the journey that that we've seen for the past few years, from mainframe to cloud and everything in between. Startups, big companies, enterprises. Been on the consulting side, the client side. I've run programs, implemented programs, built products. And like you, I spent, well, actually just over 11 years at Salesforce on a range of roles, innovation roles, solution consulting roles. And I've just been privileged to be able to travel the world for many years as well and see and observe a lot of different ways of working. And, it's been a fun ride.
Yeah.
And then the last few years, very focused, like you, on ServiceNow, how ServiceNow can really change the technology landscape around specifically CRM and AI. And yeah, it's just a wonderful time to be in technology, I think. So yeah, what a journey. 33 years you've got.
Yeah.
Almost 29 years here. So between us, I
Well,
feel old.
and it's fascinating because we're in this huge transition with AI, and everybody's got excited, and things have got a little bit frothy in some areas. But you're right. Think about it: from mainframe to client server, from DOS base to Windows interface to cloud-based computing. This is I do think in all of my years, and there's been lots of background to what I've just said there in terms of who benefited from that. But this AI one is the one that I can't see quite where it's going to finish at the moment, or where it's going to, what the next one's behind it. But it's certainly, I think, going to be one of the most impactful ever of all of those changes.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, and actually I was reflecting on that career journey and even things I was seeing 25 years ago with Lotus.
Yep.
I mean, Lotus used to be mocked and laughed at.
Yeah.
It was just used for the wrong reasons. But actually some of the tech then, Domino workflow.
Yeah.
I was building workflow and building out CRM systems even back then in Lotus.
But do you know what? It's fascinating when you say that, because yes, we've seen all these changes and this is different and that's different. Some of them had fundamental problems, exactly the damn same, right?
Yeah, exactly the same. And, data being one of them, which we can talk about later.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Bane of everyone's life.
Yeah.
But thinking about this sort of topic of CRM and AI, actually, completely interwoven now, and AI has obviously come to the fore recently. What's your take on the world of CRM and how that's morphed in the last few years as well?
Yeah, I think it's changed hugely, right? I mean, if you look at the history of the CRM, customer relationship management, as it's been labelled, I think what the way this is moving is expectations of customers and consumers, whether you're a B2B or a B2C, are higher than ever before. And I think some of the frustrations I've seen is that previous CRM systems were designed to make the vendor successful as possible, maximize ARPU and revenue, and how can I sell the next product as quickly as I possibly can. And I think what we are seeing, partly through social media in some ways, but is this desire to get a much more personalized experience. And then there's a balance about how much about me I want to tell you to get that experience. But actually, you know what? I don't want to spend time on the phone with you. I had a great experience with something I was buying yesterday. I bought one of these new electronic notebooks. I'm going away from paper at last.
Yep.
And I had some questions on it, but I didn't have to go and trawl a document or anything. I interfaced with an agent, and the agent answered my questions in like three questions, answered 1, 2, 3, and I went straight to purchase. And then I got a message it's being shipped straight away. So I think the way that AI is going to assist, not just in the personalization of my experience, but actually, I'm sure inside that organization, the whole supply chain on that end is all managed and held and assisted by AI, where it makes it much slicker and quicker. I got a shipping notification within 20 minutes, right? Not when I bought something the other week, and I got the shipping notification 3 days later.
Wondering where it was,
Well, exactly. Yeah. So I think AI is going to have a huge impact on how we, as B2B or B2C consumers and users, experience the services that we get and how those products are delivered to us.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think just the speed of change, the things you're talking about there didn't exist even a couple of years ago. And trying to bring that level of technology to bear for actual outcomes is not easy.
No.
Despite what people say.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hard work to do. What do you think are the precursors to enabling that experience that you had?
Well, I think that organisation are very fortunate in that they didn't have a huge amount of legacy. They're a reasonably youngish company, so they were able to set themselves up in that utopian view of having very clean data and information that they could work from. Right. One thing AI is not going to do is fix the sins of the past. No. Let's be honest. And anybody who thinks it is sadly deluded. But that's where I think a lot of large organizations are going to struggle is how does my AI make decisions to the level I've allowed it to based off of the information, the quality of the information it's given, right? And we all know the rubbish in, rubbish out. Same's true with AI.
Yeah. If not exponentially,
Well, yeah, exactly. Because at least we as humans, when we make a bad decision, we go, oh, that was a bad decision. Data was wrong. Where an agent will go, well, the data was the data. I made the decision. I'm on to the next thing.
Absolutely.
So I think that's going to be one of the biggest things. And I think, I see this certainly in the fintech space where large traditional organizations are struggling with the agility to compete with the fintechs and the startups. And the fintechs and the startups have the agility partly because of the quality of their data is consistent, but they struggle with having the volume of data to have knowledge and be able to work from that. So, I think the next few years are going to be a big level set for these organizations. If you're a big company, you got to get that quality of data right. If you're a small company, you've got to get the volume of data right.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think that makes me think about architecture.
Yeah.
It makes me think about where is all that data?
Yeah.
And in my experience, in many of the enterprises I've dealt with, data's everywhere, but it's nowhere.
Yeah.
No one knows how to bring it together. And when you think about AI then having to try and operate on top of that fragmentation, how on earth can it deliver?
Yeah.
So then it brings up the concept of unification.
Yeah.
What might it look like if I had one place with my data?
Yeah.
Or connections to those data sources that are easily maintainable, where the AI can operate with ease?
Yeah.
Are you seeing that emerge in the industry?
Well, I am. And I think, one thing I'm proud of at ServiceNow is that we spotted that very early on. There's lots of things ServiceNow has done well. Things that they could do better as well. I'll be very honest. But I think the recognition that data is the fuel for AI. Right? AI is the brain. Data is the energy and the workflows are the muscles, the limbs that make things happen. And then you have to be the security, which we can talk about later. But recognition that the quality of the AI. We saw it very early on with language models hallucinating, right? And hallucination is nothing more than, I can't find the answer, I'll make one up, right? Which is a stupid thing for a language model to do because it ruined their credibility. But I do think that we are seeing this change in the role of a CTO and a chief data officers are becoming more and more important because we know and executives are recognizing that you've got to get consistency of that data in your AI governance to drive things like proper customer relationship management. It's one thing to accidentally tell an employee you got 10 days holiday and when they look, they've only got 5. It's something totally different. when you're misleading clients and customers based off of erroneous data and information, or making decisions on how you engage with them on that, off of that. So I think that foundation is table stakes. Quality data is table stakes.
Has to be. I mean, it's something we've noticed on many of the projects we're involved in. There's often a reluctance, or people don't want to admit data is bad. There's this need for speed. Everyone wants everything now. AI should be the silver bullet, but it's not, as we know. So how do you get to the point of I call it data remediation? It's funny you mentioned that the health metaphor. That's something actually, and that was totally impromptu. We actually have a program at the whole group called the Data Health Program for this very reason, because in our experience, data can be an inhibitor. And as you said, it's fuel. If that fuel is, not good quality, well, guess what happens? The engine splutters, the brain can't work, the AI can't work.
Exactly.
So a very big piece of the work that we do is figuring out that data landscape, that data quality, the uniqueness, the freshness, the accuracy, the duplication, and then look at how do we remediate that very quickly. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. No one lives in a perfect world of data, but how do you use that to just incrementally improve rapidly your outcomes? So I think well, workflow as well, right? It's the same for workflow. Workflow is deterministic versus the non-deterministic. Deterministic workflows still require good data.
Absolutely.
So they go off in all sorts of directions you don't want them to.
Exactly.
So I think this concept of data is often misunderstood. But no one gets promoted for it, right?
No.
Who got promoted for cleaning the data?
Well, exactly. And there's this, the most mature organizations have this recognition that their data is not clean, or we've got bad structure. And because it sounds technical when you say, let's talk about metadata to a CEO, and they're like, I don't understand what you mean. Metadata is just the information about the data, right? It's very simple. And we love bamboozling non-technical people with acronyms. But when I talk to clients and they say to me, right, how do we get going? What's the program look like? And I say, well, foundationally, you've got to get your AI governance right. We'll talk about governance in a minute. But you've also got to think about your architecture. And architecture is not just your AI architecture. What AI am I going to use out of all the AI that's out there? But that has to sit on a data architecture. And if you don't start with your data architecture and knowing where that data is and the validity of that data, then you're going to build on a very, very weak foundation. And in fact, one of the big programs I worked on with a very large UK pharmaceutical company, and the CIO, when we were talking about AI, and the CIO said, well, this is great because we've spent the last 18 months going through a process of cleaning up the integrity of our data. And honestly, it put them in just such a position to be able to move very quickly with the AI because they had trust in the data they've got. And they knew where they had bad data and bad structure and bad information. So I think it's the bedrock.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because when you take that data, once you have that data, and it's starting to look better. I think the acquisition you made last year, Data.World, is a really interesting one around data catalogs. Around the semantics of data. Because then what we've also seen is for the AI to work, it's not just the data alone, it's then the graph, knowledge graphs, contextual graphs, what happened, so that AI can reason. Why did this happen? How did it happen? When did it happen? And for what purpose? Not just it happened. So I think there's almost like a layering approach needed to get the data right, look at the context of it, allow the AI to function.
And data isn't about, is that date field correct? Data is the context of multiple components of data coming together into a workflow to allow a decision to be made. When was that data created? When did Mark say that he was going to Japan and he needed a new suitcase? Whatever it is, right? You get that is where I think people need to understand into the relationships of the data. And the other thing I'm seeing as well, we talk a lot about sovereign cloud and the need to have our data in the right place. It's not necessarily where your data resides and how you access that data, but it's actually also who can see that data. Am I allowed to see that data in a workflow, right? And that's something I think ServiceNow is particularly good at, management of that. But also, and this is why I love Data.World, where's the data been? On that journey, who looked at it? Where did it go? Who played with it? Who changed it? What workflow did it appear in?
Provenance of it,
Yeah, exactly. So kind of the histology, the provenance, where's it been, I think is as important as where does it live nowadays.
Because I think that sort of takes us on that journey from where we were 30 years ago is static data,
Yeah.
human input data. I used to manage a humongous SQL database at 3M.
Ooh.
Lots of data, but primarily human driven.
Yeah.
Before we had all the connectors and all the integrations, and and it gets messy very quickly. But it also means that the data has, what I learned back then, something called a decay rate. Just because the data's there doesn't mean it's very good, and if it's not looked after, it can degrade over time. So this healthy metaphor, I think, really works, because if you can think of data as almost, I think of it like an organism.
Yeah.
How do I help it grow, and how do I nourish it, and how do I make sure it's relevant, and all those things I talked about earlier, the accuracy, it's accurate and its quality. I think that moves us into a very different world of understanding that data is a living thing in some respects, not just something that's dumped into a table in a database or some other storage mechanism and then just there to be used. It's a really poor concept nowadays, I think, just to think of data in tables.
Yeah, and you're always adding to it as well.
Yeah.
Right. And you add to it organically through things you learn.
Yep.
People will go and change the data because of some valid reason. We hope that they're changing the data. And then, you make an acquisition, you're an organization, you buy another company, and they've got a new set of data that doesn't necessarily match yours. So you enrich the data, both through volume, but also, I think, in terms of the quality of the data. And I think data programs are underinvested in many organizations, if I'm really
I would agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. So if we take that
Yep.
then, and we've sort of got the foundations of AI,
Yep.
and that's powering all sorts of new goodness. You mentioned governance.
Yeah.
What does good governance look like to you?
Oh my God, governance. So first of all, governance is not IT governance, right? We've had IT governance for a long time, and it keeps us safe in terms of how we promote to production and we build products. AI governance is the responsibility of the whole company, and let me give you some examples of that. And this is one of my pet subjects, by the way.
Yeah.
So you have to think about, from a technology point of view, as a CIO, you've got to think about, are my agents doing what they said they would do? Are they the agent they said they are? Right. So that whole, and is that language model got bias within it? How are the algorithms actually performing how we expect them to perform? So that's one aspect on governance of the technology, right? And I can explain why ServiceNow is unique if you wish. But then on the other side, you've got to say, right, okay, I'm the CHRO, I'm the people leader of the organization. I want to AI enable my people. I want them to lean in and embrace and become more productive and more efficient and use this technology to help them in their jobs. How do I do that without them putting confidential information to a public available technology that's suddenly publicized and my quarterly results are out the night before they should be, right? So there's a whole aspect of governance there.
Yep.
And then you've got to also think about when I'm using this technology, and I'm actually, the chief risk officer has got to make those assessments against my policies. So we know, you and I know, some of these language models are programmed in what could be considered unsavory ways, right? We know, we can think of one in particular.
Yep.
Does that fit with my ESG policy or not, right?
Yeah.
And so governance at that level, just at that abstraction, is the responsibility of everyone, right? And that's why I think it's one of those that has to sit at the very highest level of consideration in organizations. And yes, there are technology we've got to help with some of those things, but some of those are policy and design as well. And I think getting that right is critical to be. If you get it right, it's an acceleration, right? If you try and retrofit governance for AI, you're in a whole world of pain. I've got a large client of mine who they have something like 300 plus AI projects ready to go. They've gone through all of the, yes, this will work, and all the data's good and everything else, and this has got value, blah, 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 blah. And now they've got to go through governance, and their governance is taking them 9 months to go and check out all of that. So it's like 300, and
Agents are obsolete by then.
Well, yeah, exactly. They've moved on. But they've got, and it's this overwhelming backlog stuck behind a manual governance process that's not fit for purpose in its design. So we're going to revise that. We can get that to accelerate much faster.
It is really interesting. I know, with your background, and we saw it in the past world as well with platforms around shadow IT. Everyone building things just because they can.
Yeah.
Are you seeing an acceleration of that in the AI world?
Well, I'm seeing a lot of people think about, well, hang on a minute. How do we stop agent sprawl? How do we have reuse? How do we think about concept of knowledge management, right? We have lots of knowledge centers in these organizations, IT, HR, manufacturing, legal, help desk here, help desk there.
Yep.
And the management of knowledge. Well, do I need 19 knowledge agents, or can I have one agent that does knowledge, right? That does creation of knowledge. So I think that in that governance model is, what's my agent library? What are the ones I'm going to allow to be used by the business? How do I stop somebody just creating an agent randomly? Or how do I stop an agent suddenly appearing inside another agent that I didn't know anything about?
Right.
And so I think all of that is where people are suddenly going, oh my God, I've got to think this through really carefully, or else you could end up with trillions of agents
Absolutely
doing, and you don't know what they're doing. So the need to have like the HR department for agents is the way I phrase it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because if you think of the agent as it has a persona, right? And we give it personas. It has a job to be done.
Yeah.
Why not think of it as an entity that has to be managed
exactly
in the same way? It has its governance, it has its rules, it has its policies.
Yeah.
Tell you what to do. But what you don't want are agents popping up all over the place, connecting to data sources they shouldn't, trying to do things they shouldn't, and causing havoc. As you say, they need to be catalogued and monitored.
Yeah, and we have a HR department to make sure my expenses, I do the right thing on my expenses, and I don't book weird flights I shouldn't, etc.
Yeah.
You've got to have the same policies, different, but the same principle of policies for your agents as well.
I guess they just don't have the downtime or the PTO issues.
Well, no, exactly. Yeah,
makes it a little bit easier.
It does.
Yeah. So, this is wonderful. So we've gone through that whole sort of data workflow to AI, where we are today. And then we talked about CRM and the evolution of CRM. And it's not about being static. We talked about, fragmentation makes things hard. So unifications, are positive.
Yeah.
Where do you see, that combination of CRM and AI becoming the most powerful combination? In which parts of CRM do you think it's relevant? So
I think when traditionally when beginning of my career, we used to talk about, the more time you can spend with the customer, the more the business they're going to do with you, and they're not with the competition, right?
Right.
I think that AI changes that paradigm massively, because actually what I want, I've got plenty of things to do in my life, and I want an efficient, effective, accurate process of engagement with the companies I choose to engage with, right? And I think what AI allows us to do, and this is where we have made so many mistakes with CRM over the years, is we've gone from, we have this way of doing things, but it's not very good. Let's buy a new technology and take the way we've done it and put it in the new technology, and the new technology, it's not as good, right? Because we've shifted. This is a pivot point, right? And when you talk about business transformation, not an IT transformation, not digitization, the way you've got to rethink this is reimagine how you engage. If you were the startup, like the electronic book I've just bought, but you're a big company, how would I design that process from the beginning to be AI first, AI native, right? Where would I actually want the humans to engage in that process? And where do I want to make it as simple and easy as possible? And one of the 4 tenets of business transformation, and we used to call this Uberization many years ago, but is the idea that you don't put the burden of effort on the customer or consumer or user, and you don't put the burden of effort on the company. You find that balance on the reimagination to say, is this easier for the person to engage, to get service, to get product? Is this easier for me to look after them and take care of them? And that's where I see CRM and AI becoming very different. If all you do is look at how you do things today and add an agent here and add an agent there and add an agent there, you failed. You really haven't capitalized on it.
Could not agree more. And in fact, some of the biggest customers we're dealing with, big global enterprises who are effectively replatforming at the same time. I think that concept of the beginner's mind is crucial.
Yeah.
And it's orthodoxy busting.
Yeah.
Just because you did it that way there doesn't mean you should do it that way there.
Yeah.
And because AI has a very different way of working and the ability to do things we never could do, why would we want to take that sort of as-is situation and just port it over?
Yeah.
So I think certainly a lot of clients that we come across are sort of stuck in that lift and shift mindset.
Yep.
It'll be faster, it'll be cheaper, and it's about a cost often in their mind and efficiency. But actually, there are hidden gains to be had when we start uncovering them in the new world, where AI, is sort of front of mind, top of mind, and reimagining how that process might work.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's not just bolting it on. It's not just saying stick it there and that will improve that little piece. It's the entire end-to-end journey. So like lead to cash is a great example.
Yeah,
How might
absolutely.
that world that we deal with, it's one of the sort of our core competences is understanding everything from, the lead and then into the quote and that quotation, then how it gets decomposed and, all the way through to the billing systems. There's a lot of moving parts there.
Yeah.
Right, a lot.
And your beginner's mind is right, because the more junior people in the organisation, by definition, have a beginner's mind because they're at the beginning of their career. It's the more senior ones who have always worked like this.
Yep.
And I think part of our responsibility, yours and mine,
Yep.
is to say, why? Why do you want to do it like that? Yep. That's crazy, and challenge, right?
That's exactly what we're doing. And it's wonderful to see that, people come along who hadn't seen what I saw 30 years ago, and because they don't know that, they've never seen it, and they don't even think of it, and therefore they're thinking in a new way. So a lot of like the people I work with and the people we bring into our business from outside the industry, they're creative minds. They think differently.
Yeah.
They can apply that thinking and then the use of technology to solve, a problem that's human or technology based or both.
Yeah.
So I think rethinking, reimagining, not being stuck with baggage of the past, that's a key thing with AI now.
Yeah.
You've got to rethink things very differently.
Yeah.
Different lens.
And I think it takes that realization at every level in the organization. It takes the executives in the organization to create the freedom and space and remit to allow that to happen. And then it requires those that are involved in the projects and the programs to start with that beginner's mind, that kind of clean piece of paper, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And then it takes the confidence of the people who are doing the doing and actually starting to put the things together and say, well, this doesn't make sense. We can do it a different way. So I think it's applicable at every level in the organization to create the environment and the culture where it's okay to challenge. The other pivot point, and I think it applies to CRM as much as it applies to any, and you talk about lead to
cash.
Lead to cash. Thank you. Sorry. It's all about lead to cash, which is quite a hard name of a process. Where do we get lead? How do we get the money? Yeah. But if you think about that whole engagement with the client and the consumer, you've got to start from the design point of what do they really want from us? What is our value? What is it I'm trying to do? Not how efficiently can I be? But there's a lot of people involved in that process, right? It could be hundreds of it could be tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
And you've got to go, well, hang on a minute. If we use this AI technology, we're going to lift maybe initially some of the more straightforward, routine, manual tasks. We're going to change the way we work and operate. We're going to have the HR, we're going to have the virtual employees alongside the human employees, just like we spoke about within the world of CRM, within the world of doing that process. What is it those people are going to do? And I'll tell you one of the things I'm seeing, which is like, oh my God, is where people are saying, wow, well, we freed up this resource, but we need the resource because it knows our business. And now we're able to go and access new markets we weren't able to go to. What else can we do? Yeah, we've reduced our cost to our barrier to entry to a new market or building a new product or a new capability. And actually, it's not just about driving cost efficiency in our current process. It's about freeing up resource and mind share to be able to go and enter a new market, create new revenue streams we weren't able to, build a new product or service that we've always wanted to do, but we just haven't had the resource to be able to do it. So I think you've got to be very purposeful in that design and intention to take the humans on the journey when the agents join them.
Couldn't agree more, and actually it gives them better career paths. Yeah. I've seen that in contact centres, the rise of AI in the contact centre. Everyone thought, well, it'll all be bots, right? Yeah. First of all, bots were just tree-based decision things that were terrible.
Hate bots.
NLU came along and it misinterpreted everything. We've obviously had a Gen AI in that space, but the number of humans hasn't really decreased because people still want to talk to people at points.
Absolutely.
And actually they can do higher value work. They can actually get rid of the mundane, as we say, and do the higher value work and have a better career and have a trajectory that isn't just sitting there, tappy tap tap.
Well, think about every job that you and I have ever done over our last combined, 60 years we've been working, right? There's been a lot of it. You've looked at it and gone, oh my God, this is
why do we do it that way?
This is mind-numbing. Yeah. If only I didn't have to do that, I could do this. And every employee feels like that in every organisation. Of
course.
Right? You look at employee engagement scores across surveys and things like that. If you could, I said this to somebody yesterday. I mean, I'm privileged. I have somebody who manages my diary and where I should be and all of that. An EA. And when I first got an EA, it was unbelievable, because suddenly all of this stuff that I'm not very good at doing, they're brilliant at doing, and they were doing it for me. And I can be so much more productive
Right.
on doing other things, right? And I think the same's true for every human being in every organisation.
Totally agree. The human is still very much at the centre.
Yeah.
I'll just take you back. It's an interesting one. Just going back to that lead to cash, which
Yeah.
again sounds very hard, as you say.
Yeah.
But it's top of mind for a lot of CFOs
Yeah.
and businesses. And the reason being, what we do is we focus on business.
Yeah.
We focus on outcomes.
Yeah.
We focus on revenue and service. Okay.
Uh-huh.
In that revenue world, one of the biggest challenges they have is leakage,
Yes.
but they don't know where.
Yeah.
And for some businesses, that can be hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Understanding that journey, understanding the components, understanding where technology can be used to track and trace and figure out where to plug those gaps is a transformational need that probably couldn't have been done before because data's everywhere again. And what we're seeing now is by bringing that unification together, by using the AI that is there, we're able to reimagine that process. So something that's been very, very do this, then this, and this, and this, and this, and this in that order for years, very formulaic. Actually, when you start to rethink it, going back to what we were just talking about, you can really almost come up with an entirely new process. And the way that that's easily consumed by businesses, they understand the concept of day sales outstanding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's my cash?
Yeah.
My cash collection is terrible.
Right.
And then you trace that all the way back down to the technology stack, and it turns out that the orders were wrong, fulfillment was wrong. Why did that happen? Well, when we trace it all the way back, the quote was wrong.
Yeah.
And therefore the rest would
Right.
follow. Unbelievable.
So let me give you a spin, right? This will hopefully knock you off your chair a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Why is ServiceNow so well positioned to help people in that lead to cash?
Whilst I
Think
I know the answer.
about this. We manage incidents. We manage a lead. Oh, where's the lead? Where do you get the cash? That's an incident, right? We manage so many incidents in lead to cash every day that we're spending all of our time doing incidents, right? What we don't do is look at the problem. Where's the problem?
Root cause.
All my people are doing incidents. I've got no one doing problem management.
Yeah.
Right? Incident problem. How do I do change?
Right.
And this is ITIL that we run within ITSM organizations, incident change, problem configuration management, and the rest of the ITIL disciplines. Apply that thinking and principle to lead to cash. Let's free up the human brains from the incidents. Let's allow those to be managed.
Yep.
Let's look at the problem and the change. Let's think about where on earth go from just putting fires out every day to actually driving improvements in the organisation and business. Let's change that customer client experience rather than me chase, where's my order? I placed it yesterday. I need it today, right? And it could be you're delivering a pallet of bricks to a building site and you're holding up 50 people who've got work to do. Or it could be you're buying some high-value, multi-billion-dollar jet or whatever. Yeah. But you get the principle.
Yeah.
And that's why I think ServiceNow approaches that lead to cash in a different way, rather than how can I make sure you get as much bang for your buck out of that person you've found and identified.
Could not agree more. I love it. Yeah, that whole structure, the data's in one place, the architecture's in one place. You know, the work is done.
Exactly.
It's followed through. You know, and I think a lot of the time in those processes, just in that revenue analysis, there is so much chase.
Yeah.
Wasted energy, expended energy, when if we just backtrack a little bit, rethink the problem, challenge the orthodoxy again.
Exactly.
How can we reimagine that in one place now?
Exactly.
And that's what clients are buying into.
Yeah.
They don't want that chase. And then they can redeploy the person, as you just said, to go do revenue generating activities instead of trying to find where the revenue they made disappeared.
If you apply the disciplines under which CIOs run their IT organizations to the process of lead to cash, transformational.
Yeah.
Right. And you inject 100%. AI capabilities in that process, you will see it in a totally different way. Yeah. You really will. I have one of my clients who are very forward thinking, and they've identified a number of these critical, what we call transverse business process. They go across all the traditional silos of an organization. And the CEO has said, right, I've got a CFO and I've got a COO and I've got a CIO and all the traditional leadership organization. And they've said, I want a direct report for each of these key workflows that go across our business, right? Yep. So, and lead to cash is one of those where I want somebody coming to the ecom meeting, to not the board, because it's one below the board, coming to that meeting and telling me, how are we performing on our lead to cash, right? I don't want to go to the CFO and say, have you got the invoices out? I don't want to go to the sales leader and say, have you got enough pipeline? I want to go to somebody that says, yes, that critical process for our business, we're running at 95% efficiency or whatever it is, right? And we've got to put the KSOs in place to measure it. But that is really forward thinking. And I love that.
Absolutely. It's a bit like the health analogy again. It's like doing an ECG. Just putting all the little monitors in place. I can see what's happening, why it's happening.
And that is where I think AI really, really, really helps us, because if you use the technology the right way, and I think we're very privileged at ServiceNow having a huge multi-decade legacy in workflows. One of my clients said to me, so ServiceNow can be like our agentic brain or our nervous system, another client said, where it is sensing things that are going on all the time. And I had this with a client where they were looking at the supply chain, and if a supplier fails under certain conditions, if this happens and that happens and this happens, we really want to do an investigation.
Right.
And you're using the agentic technology 24/7 to keep an eye on that, just like we do in IT around a database, right? Yeah. That principle of AI doing that around business conditions, what that allowed them to do is we wouldn't spot that supplier had a problem until the products didn't arrive at the factory door. Using the AI technology, we can get into leading indicator measures rather than lagging measures. We've seen the problem 30 days before they were due to deliver. We could see they were going to go bust, and we can make adjustments and changes, and we can roll that implication right the way through our supply chain to the wholesalers that are due to receive that product. And that is a really different way of reimagining and that's 100,000 employee plus business, very big business.
Well, and that takes me in another direction, which I think what you just described is sort of that shift from being reactive to proactive and then predictive. And it's something I saw emerge. I was doing a lot of IoT work a few years ago, and this concept of how do I take the data in advance, well, not even just in advance, but in real time, and understand it and interpret it and fix things before someone even knows. And one example would have been a huge shipping company that make enormous engines.
Right.
Enormous engines. The big challenge that they have is when does that thing need to go to port for its MRO? So by doing predictive analysis with the data, you can figure out, okay, I need to kickstart my opportunity journey probably 6 or 7 months in advance.
Yes.
So that boat's in the right place with the right engine at the right time with the right spare parts so everything can get done. And it's back on the water as fast as possible.
Yeah.
The downtime costs a lot of money.
And that predictive, we've had predictive for a while, but where the AI comes in is the intelligence to go, right, now I've spotted those conditions, and yes, I've run it against the predictive model, but actually there's another input you haven't thought about here. I don't know, there's some geopolitical thing I've just read in a newspaper. The agent could do that and say, I think we need to add that input into the scenario here. And you know what, I'm going to make the course correction now. I'm going to come to the human and say, I've run these scenarios, scenario 1, 2 or 3, which one do you want to do? But I've spotted that not just based off of the predictive engine, but based off of otherworldly
super
inputs
powerful,
as well.
Additional context that you can never even, well, you would probably just wouldn't pick up on it, but the AI can.
Exactly.
It's phenomenal. And I think that then takes me into the service realm.
Yes.
Because service is something I've spent a lot of time in over the past sort of 10 years, looking at the contact centers, looking at channels, looking at routing, triaging, routing. And often in my past, that's where things stopped. The inability to actually resolve and fulfill.
Yeah.
And that caused me challenges in many ways.
Yeah.
What I see now is the ability to not only intake, triage, but then resolve with ease by connecting an entire business. How have you seen that evolve?
Oh my God, I've seen that change so much. So true story. My wife will help me kill me if she hears me say this, but many years ago, many years ago, she worked for the Royal Mail in one of their call centres. And they would get phone calls coming in. I can't find my parcel. I've lost this. I've lost my wedding dress was the one I still remember from this poor person. Their wedding dress was their wedding was like 2 days ago.
Oh no!
And she very quickly became highly regarded. Her CSAT scores, they phoned people up and said, "What's that like?" Were really high. I said, "Well, that's really cool, right? How did you?" And she was a summer job that she did it for, and she said, "Well, it's quite simple, really. I just kept them informed." So when they phoned me up and said, "I've lost my wedding dress," rather than saying, "Oh, I'll leave you, I'll call you back when I find something," end of the day, I just give them a quick call back or just say, "Yeah, I'm still on it. Don't worry." And it took all the stress out of the situation. Right. And I think exactly like you've just described there, the way that this is changing I'm okay with knowing there's a problem if you've told me there's a problem.
Right.
If I'm getting an update, and we can do this at mass scale with AI, right? If I'm getting an update to say, my package parcel, whatever, the delivery services are starting to get pretty good at this. But if some of them, if I've got the product or service I'm trying to get or consume actually informing me, there's been a problem with your delivery, that it's not going to be there on time, this is when it's going to be there, is that okay? And I go, yeah, that's fine. Or no, actually, that's not fine.
Yeah.
You can see how that decision tree can then be affected. When I say, no, that's not fine, you can go down a different automated path of escalation. Maybe that's when it ends up with a human to go, okay, we've got to reprioritize some things here. Maybe there's another client who is okay with it. You can see the scenarios that you can reimagine with that kind of thing. And that's where I think AI can give us all the personalized experience and the connection with that organization to change our perception and experience of working with them.
And I think I think it's a great story. And I think what's critical there is across any channel, or my channel of choice. Don't force it on me.
Oh, yeah.
Which ones do I like to use?
Yeah.
I don't like to phone people either, like you.
No.
I'd rather just, while I'm working, sit on the web chat.
Yeah.
And I do this regularly now. So
Yeah.
it's becoming more common.
No, and I have to say at my age, I don't like this little form factor of an iPhone.
Yes.
My kids love it and they can do anything on it. I can't. I need a big screen. It might be age or my eyesight. I'm not sure. But you're right. Any channel. Some people like voice. Great. For some people, for language reasons, voice is a really difficult one. And they just want a text-based service or a what?
Well, even with voice, AI is becoming very prominent.
Oh, yeah.
The ability to turn that sort of analog data to a digital signal. It just looks like a chat.
Yeah.
On the back end.
Yeah.
It's like a WhatsApp or a text message.
Yeah.
I think that's super powerful. And then using the other scenarios I'm seeing play out are things around sentiment. Who am I dealing with them? The AI, figuring out, helping me summarize cases, for example, without having to go read pages of notes and put me on hold for 10 minutes.
We've got one of our great German customers that's doing some really leaning in stuff. And one of the things is they've got people who come into their stores and they've got a problem with the product, right? And I bought something and they come in and say, it doesn't work. And then you've got some human being who's trying to write something down on a notepad to say, was it this? No. Was it that? Ticking like off a list, right? And you see that when you go on chatbot.
Yeah.
And what they've done is brilliant, is when the person comes in and says, well, look, don't tell me to tell them. They can use voice to describe it. And the AI is going, okay, so was it broken or torn but it's got the sentiment capture in it, but it doesn't give you a prescriptive list of all the things that it's going to ask you. It's got a kind of guideline on what it's looking for, but it allows the customer and consumers to actually feel like they've really been listened to, not like they're filling a form in.
Right.
And that, in terms of the customer experience, is really different. It's a personalized experience. I'm telling you why I'm frustrated or why, in a different way to, yes, tick this box. The classic call tree.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I hate bots.
Hate it, yeah.
The classic call tree, hate that.
Yeah.
You need a much more intuitive way that you talk to a human, right? Hey, Mark, this isn't working. Okay, I get that. What was the problem? Oh, I'm really sorry about that. And was it, you're right. So you can see how the experience can be dramatically changed with the support of AI.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And you can even contain those conversations in those systems now as well. Because if that system and the AI has access to my orders, and it knows where things are, it knows the status of them, it's pulling all that information, there's some wonderful opportunity there to really, help them at that moment when they need it. And if they can't help them, then transfer to the human.
Yes.
You can very quickly see, well, this is where it broke down, this is why they needed help. And, the time to resolution is way faster.
Yeah.
Instead of hours, I mean, I've sat on calls for hours sometimes. It gets very...
Well, you never get those hours back, do you?
Well, you don't.
No. And you know what? Like we said earlier, got lots of other good things to do.
Exactly. That's why I love the chat.
Yeah. But also, think about it. So not just is that consumer customer experience enhanced and they really feel they're able to get their point across as opposed to trying to fit into how I want them to talk to me.
Yeah.
But at a macro level within the organisation, if I can see I've had 90 people turn up at 90 different stores with a very similar issue, then I can actually pivot the organisation because the AI can run that sentiment and say, well, not the sentiment, sorry, can run an analysis on all of that information to say, oh my God, we've got a real supplier problem here. Now you think how long it takes in large organisations when you've got a product that isn't working to get that feedback, to get that recognition in the first place and get the feedback to the people who are building, creating whatever the product in itself to make the change that's necessary. If that screw always falls off on that home built unit with the Allen key I've provided you every single time, it takes a large organisation a long time for the penny to drop. Whereas with the AI, you could have captured that in 24 hours.
Detect,
Yeah,
update.
exactly. Sense and respond. Sense and respond.
Yeah, it's a great way of thinking. Sense and respond. I like it. Yeah, so that whole service world, I think, is morphing.
Yes.
The AI is
For the
having a
good,
huge
for the
impact.
better, thank
For the
God.
better. And when we connect, service with revenue, you sort of have a full life cycle then for a business of how do I make money? How do I
Yeah.
keep the money that I made
Yeah.
without leaking it? And then if there is service, and let's be honest, service only exists because something's broken,
Yeah.
something's wrong. Otherwise,
Yeah.
service wouldn't exist. But how do I remove the friction there? How do I make it so easy? And even, how do I do it before you even know about it so you don't contact me?
Yeah, but you've also got that proactive service, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe I've got an air source heat pump and I've got this complicated system that I can't understand. Right? I'm not a stupid person, but I really can't understand it. And when the guy comes out, he came out recently and he's brilliant. Absolutely love him. See way too much of him, but I love him. He's a great guy. But he's like, actually, I haven't seen this before. And instead of having to phone up his mate and say, have you seen this before? Or call through to their call centre, wait for half an hour on a call that I'm paying him for, to then ask, have you seen this before? He was able to go on and go in with a chatbot from the product organizer for the company and say, and it kind of asked him a series of questions, guided him without being prescriptive.
Right.
And actually he got to a knowledge article, but it was very personal because it was the UK edition of that product, not the European edition, where the problem was.
Right.
And it had the answer pretty quickly. So
Interesting.
And for me, it was great because he was out. I love him, but he was out of my hair really quickly. And for him, it was great because he needed to get to his next job.
Well, he's also a brand ambassador, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's the face of that business.
He is. He is. He was the one who recommended I bought that particular unit in the first place. So you're right.
Interesting you say that as well, because the other thing we've seen in service is no longer just a cost centre. Service is becoming a revenue generating opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Because every touch point is an opportunity to upsell, cross-sell. Maybe you were on a plan for that. I don't know. Maybe it's a bronze plan, but you called him out too many times. Now he wants to put you on the silver plan.
Yeah, but I'd only take that if I trusted him.
Right.
And I only trust him because of the quality of what he delivers. And the quality of delivers, he's got to be enabled to do that.
And he's been augmented by the technology.
Exactly.
The human and the technology gave a great outcome.
Exactly. So I think I'm really looking forward to how the world of service changes over the next 1, 2, 3 years.
Yeah.
And I think if you're an organisation that's not planning and thinking this through now, then you're going to be left in the dust.
Well, yeah, it's just pure cost.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've explored the full gamut of CRM there.
There you go.
And AI. So AI, data, workflow, CRM, making money, saving money, service.
Improving experience.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Adam. It's been a great conversation. I'm sure we'll do more of this.
Yeah, no, I've enjoyed that. Thank you, Mark.
And have a great rest of the day. See you soon.
Take care.
Bye.